Hey guys, welcome back to another NRL Fantasy Fanatics video. We're here with Footy Brains podcast once again. How are you, mate?
Yeah, goodwill. I am just keen to get these buys out of the way and move on to the back end of the year, to be honest. So, yeah, can't wait to get this round over and done with.
Yeah, there's been a lot of planning going into it, and probably the first player that for me is the buy of the week. Had to win fullback spot, James Tedesco. He's absolutely killed it the last couple of weeks, and I think there's really not much to be said. He's going to be the probably best wing fullback for the remainder of the season.
Well, I don't know about the best winger fullback, but he's definitely the best one to have this week, along with guys like, Drinky and Turbo and the like. Um, yeah, he's probably the best player to buy this week that you will be keeping for the rest of the season, whereas there's some other guys that you might be keeping a bit more shorter term. But yeah, Teddy's one of those guys that you just want to lock in and not have to worry about. Yes, you're probably buying him at a premium because normally you want to get Teddy in when he's, had a bad score and ducked under, around 600K. But there hasn't really been a great chance to buy him this year. He's always stayed pretty premium.
And a fairly bad draw coming up with Tigers, Dragons, and a struggling Cronulla there, where he could put on a truckload of points.
Yeah, I mean, just the next 2 weeks, you kind of want him for sure, right? Like Tigers,
Yeah.
Dragons, absolutely, you want Teddy in your
Could
team.
be could be a sneaky captaincy option if you had the guts not to captain Tyrell May.
Yeah, definitely a great shout. I'd say that's probably a good shout for those that are at a, probably back past the 10K, 20K mark in rank that want to make up a few ranks and just fingers crossed he gets a ton.
Yeah, but I do think he is quite a good buy there. How unlucky is it for Jacob Carraz owners?
Yeah, I kind of hate that we put him as a buy. I did it with Campbell as well the week before he got a concussion. Put him as a buy and he was out, and then I put Kiraz as a buy and now he's out because he's 18th man. Yeah, really sucks because he would have been the obvious choice. He still might play Origin though, to be fair to him. Might not just be 18th man with Toto carrying a knee injury as well. So good luck to him if he does play in Origin. But yeah, unlucky for the fantasy coaches that bought
I've
him in
seen a
last
couple
week.
people selling him, but he's not one to be sold at all, is he?
No, definitely hold on to him. He'll be, yeah, I think he's almost a must have for the back end of this year as well.
Yeah, and then Jacob Preston, who will probably be a must-have at the second row position for the back end of the season too. Average of 59.5 for the season. Do you think that he is close to the best buy of the week if you are looking for an edge?
Yeah, I think he's the best edge buy this week if you don't already have Koloamatangi. But you're probably not going to be buying up Koloamatangi after, the fact that he scored under 50 and he's over 800K. Yeah, Preston's another guy that you want to lock in for the rest of the season. So great week to pick him up and have him for the buy as well.
Yeah, and he just gets so many tries and he's so valuable and zero buys left in the season. You can kind of just put him in the team for the rest of the season.
Pretty much. Yep.
So let's see, Fockathy, talk us through a -4 break even. Sorry about the pronunciation, but he's kind of he's looked good the last couple of weeks there with quite a good try against the Knights and then a 58 at starting lock in 80 minutes there. Where do you sit with Celeste as a buy?
Yeah, he's one of the better cheapie options this week. Just the fact that he has that dual position, fills an edge and a mid for you if you don't have a lot of cash, or if you just want to downgrade Couchman to him just to get through a week and then buy some guns next week for the rest of the season if you don't like the ones that are on offer, or you already have Preston and Teddy. He'll be a great value for the next couple of weeks. You've got Radley, who is out with a concussion and don't have a clear return date for him yet. I think they were touting next round, but they're not. That's not 100% sure yet. Then you've also got Nat Butcher, who's still to come back from a knee injury, and also Siwa Wong. So he'll probably be in this starting team for at least the next couple of weeks. Definitely until Nat Butcher comes back, because even if Radley comes back, he might move to that lock role and Steve moves back to the bench. But at that price, under 400K, if he's starting, I think you can, yeah, lock him in as a player that will make you a bit of cash over the next couple of weeks. You'll definitely need him this round if you have a vacant edge or mid spot. And yeah, he'll probably be a sell by the end of the season, but he'll make you 100K cash easy before then.
Who's currently playing on that second, like who has he replaced on the second row?
He's
Is it
taken
Brom?
Radley's spot. So right now it's Butcher and Egan Butcher and Fiketti. Egan Butcher's only just come back as well.
Yeah,
Previously, it's a good question who was there previously, but obviously Siwa Wong was taking up one of those spots and Angus Crichton was taking up one of those spots.
yeah.
Crichton will come back in, most likely for Butcher. He'll get pushed back to the bench. And well, even if he doesn't, Ficketti's still got the lock role to go back into as well. But either way, I think Ficketti's going to be in the team, whether he's playing in the back row at lock or even in the front row where he's played for the last month as well. So definitely good play to have.
Yeah, and do keep in mind that prop rotation was without Nat White, who is back this week or last couple of weeks.
Yeah, and they'll probably have Lindsay Collins, I guess, back as well. So maybe not a prop player, but I could absolutely imagine him being on an edge with Crichton or at lock anyway
Yeah.
until they get more troops back, the Roosters.
Eli Katoa, 695K. Do you think he is quite an interesting buy at the second row position? Had an absolute game against the Sharks there and has been quite consistent the last 2 months there. But you have seen a couple lower scores where he misses a couple more tackles. Where do you sit with Eli Katoa?
Yeah, Katoa's another guy that's going to be great for the rest of the season. To be honest, the Storm kind of have an okay run over the next couple of weeks. You know, you got the Cowboys who have been pretty average, the Knights who have also been average, and then you got Manly who are trying to fight for a top eight spot. So they've got a decent run over the next couple of weeks. It's when they get towards the back end of the season that they've got to play, you know, the Panthers and the Bulldogs and play the Roosters as well, who will also be pushing for the keep a top eight spot. So there will be some hard games for Katoa, but he's another one that. I mean, he's kind of like a keeper in that edge spot, right? Like if you're looking at the top edges in the game, yes, you've got your dual position players like Koloamatangi that you could put there. But I mean, amongst edges, Preston and Kikau are Katoa are probably your best two, I'd say. Obviously, Hudson Young's been really good, but you don't know what's going to happen post this injury that he's got as well. So I think Katoa, if you're buying him this week, you're probably keeping him for the rest of the season as it stands.
Yeah, and his bases are really improved this year where you see he can pretty much have a base of like 30 to 35 tackles and a 150 odd meters there with no
Yep.
buys left. But
Yeah,
who would you
plays every
buy out of
game.
Preston or Katoa with Katoa being cheaper than Preston this week?
Oh, I think I'd still prefer Preston, just the way the Dogs are going and
Mhm.
how well they're playing, obviously in their top four and hoping to maintain a top four spot. But Katoa, with how good the Storm play and when they start to get on a roll and score points, they can blow teams out. Yeah, Katoa is right up there with him. It just depends. I think it's more of a gut instinct between Preston and Katoa. I just think Preston, in my mind, ekes him out because he's got a bit more upside with the Dogs, the way they're playing.
Yeah. And Josiah Karapani, a guy that I brought in round 16, he's been doing quite well there, Josiah Karapani, with a bag full of tries. Where do you sit with Josiah Karapani this week as kind of that cheapest centre that you go with, who looks to have locked down the position for the remainder of the season?
Yeah, another great option. And out of all the cheapy kind of centers and winger fullback types that had come through, he's probably the one that's got the most job security now that Cobbo has signed with the Finns, I believe, for next year. Most likely, Cobbo's probably not going to be in this squad for the rest of the season. I'd imagine Karapani gets the shout on the wing for the rest of the year. So yeah, I mean, averaged. He's priced in at around below 30, so you've got plenty of cash there to make off of him. He won't be a season-long keeper, obviously, but while he's playing and scoring tries, absolutely he'll be making plenty of coin. I guess like his scores have been propped up by tries. Like I think he scored 4 tries in the last 3 weeks, so obviously he's getting plenty of points there and not a ton of base, but the Dogs seem to be feeding him a lot of balls, so I'm not too worried about that. I think will have plenty of tries to his name over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, and you see how many Shimasaki's scoring too, and they play in the same edge, which seems to be the Broncos' go-to edge by the looks of it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
surprisingly, when you've got Katoni's tags on the other side, it's
yeah, I know. And
interesting.
the thing that stands out for me is he defended very, very well against the Warriors too, with that epic try save and turnover tackle.
Yeah, he's a great winger to have. Like, I don't think he's anything like he's not anything like Reece Walsh where he comes out and just the stuff he does is awesome on the pitch, but he puts in a shift. He's kind of like Shibasaki, right? Puts in a shift, does exactly what you need, and fills a role in your squad, and that's
Yeah.
kind of what you need most of the time.
And there you go. Tallis Duncan, another guy that just keeps on going with that huge 96 on the weekend and that double. Do you think Tallis is a tad overpriced now at 630K and that two break even? He's still interested in buying him.
Yeah, he's exploded after that 96. It was very interesting because he scored 2 tries in quick succession. I think he was on a 30 or 40 odd before he scored 2 tries, and then all of a sudden he shot up to a 70. And yeah, I had to double take at my phone when I saw it because I wasn't watching the game. But now that he's over 600K, I just think it's getting a bit too steep for him. Obviously, he's got a small break even, and he'll probably beat that and make a few price rises. But will he continue to score huge scores? I'm not too sure. Um, yeah, he's one that if you have your cheering, if you don't have, I think you might have missed the boat at this point.
Yeah, like as you say, when you've priced it 630, you probably need to be scoring 55s. And does he really score 55s for the remainder of the season? Like you've seen games of 24 and 36 and 41 there with no real tries. I think it's a bit, you kind of, yeah, sort of missed the boat on it.
Yeah, it's risky. You'll get a price rise out of him for sure this week, but next week and the week after, you might already be considering selling him. Depends on his form and how well the Rabbitohs play. But yeah, one to toss up. I mean, one to consider, yes, but yeah, it's not likely that he keeps scoring 50 plus every week.
And I think a lot of people have a lot of Rabbitohs players already, along with a lot of Raiders players, and they're on around 19 by which, with the depending on how many Origin players you have, I think that could be a pretty tight or a tough uh, round to fill.
Yeah, and also another thing to consider for buying Rabbitohs players this week is they have two more buys over the next, what, the remaining 10 rounds, 9 rounds, however
Yeah.
many rounds there are left. So I think they're one of the teams that have the most buys remaining. So you will miss two games of the last 10 of theirs. So yeah, thing to keep in mind if you've got four Rabbitohs players already.
How much better did Tom look at centre on the weekend? Kind of that roaming centre position there. 49 for him. I do think that he is probably one of the better buys in a wing fullback spot this week. It doesn't play round 19, so that's another. A lot of people own Seagulls too. But where do you think you sit with Tom as a buy right now?
Yep, not overthinking it. I picked him up a few weeks back when he ducked under 400k. So yeah, I think it's a simple one to lock in. I think the dual position updates happen in round 21. So I don't know if they plan on keeping him there at center or they're just keeping him there until he gets over the injuries that he's had. But either way, I think in either position he does well. He just has to do less at center, I feel. And it might just be better for his longevity to stay at center.
Yeah,
It means we get a player every week compared to, have him for 2 or 3 weeks and then he's injured. So I'm happy either way because he gets good scores either way.
could be 340s in a row now. Who would have thought from where I bought him at?
Well, 3 weeks in a row that he's well, actually not 3 weeks in a row that he's played, but 2 weeks in succession that he's played. So
That's
let's hope that stays the norm.
that's incredible for Tom.
Yeah.
But no, he's still he should do quite well, and they're fighting for a top 8 spot, and I think he's going to have to do pretty much everything if they want them to get in the top 8.
I guess one thing to consider, um, I guess it depends where you're ranked and how quickly you want to you like rise in rank. But when you look at those stats there just under his name, that in the top 5,000, that he's owned by 33% of teams. That's one in every three teams has turbo in it at this point, and that's only going to rise, I'd imagine, over the next couple of weeks. Definitely this week, now that he is, he's playing the buy round, and he's only owned by under 10% of teams. So there's a lot of teams out there that don't have turbo that could have turbo. So just one thing to keep in mind, depending on where you're ranked.
Yeah, Mark Nawaqanitawase. I'm really bad at pronouncing him, but
That's all right.
the
Marky
Roosters,
Mark.
Marky Mark. The Roosters with zero buys left and Mark playing in centre position this week. They do play round 18, and Mark is a definite hold. But do you have any interest in buying him at all with that nice dual position and kind of a pod-ish buy, you would say, at the wing fullback spot or centre spot for the remainder of the season?
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have any interest in buying him. I've had him since the start of the season. I sold him a week or two ago, right before he broke out with an 81, which sucked. It really hurt. I think it was the week that I bought in Campbell and I sold Nawaqanitawase, which, yeah, really hurt. Um, but I think at this point, the fact that he's over 600k, you're cheering if you've got him. He's going to make another, he's probably going to get another price rise this week as well. But is he a player that you want to end the year with? Probably not. I think that he's a little bit under some of the players that you want by the end of this year. But while you've got him at the moment, he's been super consistent and he's put in some good shifts when you needed him, played all the buy rounds, which has been excellent. But I don't think I'd buy into him now, the fact that he's over 600k. Like you can get Teddy for just a little bit more. You can get Turbo for 200k less. So yeah, I think he's probably one that if you don't have, you're not really buying into. If you do have, you're cheering while he makes more
Yeah.
more cash.
And I think if you're looking to buy him this week just because he plays a buy, you'd almost be better off buying Turbo than going to a keeper like Jacob Carraz for 100k more.
Yeah, exactly. You'd probably go Karaz next week or whenever the dogs play next week.
Yeah, they
Whenever
do. Yeah.
yeah, probably go Karaz next week when he's back.
Yeah,
instead.
Scott Drinkwater went back with a 61, and it was only a matter of time until he started to do something. He looked much better, and he always has had to do everything for the Cowboys this week or this year. Where do you sit with them kind of having a tough draw? Do you still think he is a buy?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'd still buy Drinkwater. I mean, look at that. 72 teams in the top 100 teams have Drinkwater at the moment. The fact that he's so cheap and plays every game up until the last round means that he's pretty much a locked-in player to have. They do have a lighter draw towards the back end of the year, which is nice. Yes, it's tough for the next week or two, but they're catching Storm without a few of their key players, and then they got the Dogs next week. Yes, it's going to be difficult, but I think Drinkwater is still a player to have, cheap to acquire as well. The one thing that I was questioning was why he didn't kick all the goals over the
Yeah,
weekend.
I was about to ask you about that. I wonder if it's just
Yeah,
they change sides, like Clifford has this side, Drinkwater has that side.
yeah, I don't want that to be the norm where he loses, the goal kicking duties just because of the side of the field they're kicking from. Because that'll obviously hurt. It's hurt Hines, right? He had less kick meters this year, and that's really hurt
Yeah,
his scores. Um, yeah, it's a little bit worrying, but he's still doing some form of kicking, and he's in everything that they do in attack. So I'm not hugely worried. It just might mean he loses, a couple points here and there if that's the norm. Because Clifford
yeah.
did, yeah,
Like
take
I
a
don't
decent
think
amount of
he'll
kicks.
score that 13 and 18 he scored every week. I feel like his
No.
floor will kind of be 30 most weeks.
Yeah, the floor is around 30, 35, and then any tries or try assists that he gets above that will, yeah, shoot him up. Like two tries into a 60 is great. We'll take that every week.
Yeah, and then Jack Bird, who I am hearing a couple bit of rumours that he is not playing this week, which is unfortunate as I was all over him there. But playing at a second row position with a 45 last week, if Jack does play this week, do you think he is a buy at that cheaper 337K price tag?
Yeah, I mean, this is a very, very short-term option, right? Because like they'll change their team again, most likely. But he didn't look too bad on the weekend. Was very solid. Only missed one tackle, which is honestly ideal at this point for Benji. I think the missed tackles for the Tigers is really hurting them. I rate Bird as a short-term option if he keeps playing if he's named in the back row, I absolutely would jump on him just because he's so cheap. This week he'll get you a price rise or two. Do I think he's going to be there for the rest of the season? Probably not. But if you need a cheap center this week, I don't hate it. To be
Then
honest, it's just a stopgap to get you through the next round.
on the second row position, where do you sit between Fogarty versus Bird?
Oh, I'd prefer Fiketti for sure. I'd take Fiketti over Bird, because this Tigers team, it'll like Seyfarth can easily do a job there on an edge, as well, which is what he's been doing for the last 3 months. So yeah, Fiketti's probably safer if you're choosing for an edge. I mean, if you need a center this week, I there's not really many around to be honest that I'd
No.
be more comfortable with. Bird's the one that I'd trade to if I had to.
Yeah, but I still think he's quite an interesting option there. And one that I also have as a quite interesting option who's absolutely been killing it this year is Viliami Kikau. Quite a risky play, a little bit of a pod there, but you just said you don't have much interest in him. But the Dogs, they've been playing incredible. He only has two tries for the season and is averaging 53.5. Do you think it's a little bit of an anomaly for Viliami Kikau? Or is this the new norm of what we can expect to see?
Well, I think it's more of a pod play, right? Like similar to Hudson Young, they're both under owned considering their scores. And absolutely, if he can keep putting in the big tackle busting runs like we used to see him do at the Panthers, he can absolutely score well. But the problem is the few years that he's had at the Dogs where they haven't played well and he hasn't got those tackle busts, he's scored really poorly. So we've got this mindset where we see players like play really poorly, so we don't really want to pick them up in future years. Same when we see players play really well, but then they do really poorly, e.g. Turbo, and we still get on them, even though that we've like maybe seen the best of them previously, and we won't see the best of them again. But kick out now that he's in a Dogs team that's playing well. It's kind of similar to Kiraz, right? We know Kiraz is good, but in a team that's scoring points and scoring tries, he's even better this year. So kick out absolutely has taken from that and is scoring really well this season. And I like it as a pod play, but I don't see it as like the best base, right? Like his base when he has an average game is probably around the 30 mark, and he can get you a 30 or a 40. He needs those attacking stats like those tackle busts and the line breaks and whatnot to really beef up his scores. So not a bad pod play, but probably not the best edge player to have.
Yeah, like he really doesn't make enough tackles on the edge to be that top tier gun.
Yeah, exactly. He's definitely more of an attacking weapon rather than a defensive player.
Yeah, and it does take a little bit, but with their draw and the way they're going, I do think that that risk could definitely pay off.
Yep.
So Tom Starlin again, he's been absolutely killing it this year. Just so consistent, isn't he? Where do you sit with Tom Starling in the hooker ranks for round 13 or round 18 as a little bit of a pod?
Well, I think he's not even a pod. He's probably the best hooker to have this round. Him and Cook are obviously the two best ones to have. But Starling, I think he's probably one that you could keep for longer than Cook. Cook, it's really hard with Cook because I know that a few weeks back we were kind of touting him as a must buy. He was getting 80 minutes again, and we're hoping to see him continue that. But you just can't bet on Cook's minutes week to week. And when he has poor minutes, you need him to score a try or do something in attack to be worthwhile holding. So Cook, I think, is probably going to be a guy that can get you, has a really high ceiling, but has a really low floor as well. Whereas Starling, I feel like he'll get you a consistent 50 pretty much every week at this point. So, Starling, yeah, I really like. If you're going to buy into him, he's probably just going to be a season long keeper at this point. He's not going to get you any huge scores without a few tries, but he's not really going to do much worse than a maybe a mid 30, I'd imagine.
Yeah, and he'll probably be the third hooker or second hooker in most teams. Or what do you reckon he sits as
Yeah.
the best hooker this year? There's not
Oh,
many.
definitely not the best hooker this year. I still
Yeah,
think,
Will
obviously Aaron
Clark.
Clark. Yeah. Watson is probably the next best hooker. After that, it's take your pick. Brayley's had a few good weeks.
I think
Grant's
if
had
you
a few
want
good
a
weeks. Like,
huge pod play the next couple of weeks, that you could go Starling for this week. If you have enough trades, it says Starling for this week, then you could move him on to Harry Grant, who's someone that I think could blossom it quite nicely.
yeah, I mean that's not a bad play. It's just that, yeah, like you said, how many trades do you have? I know I'm in the single digits at the moment, and I'm struggling to hold on until we get the boost of 8 more trades in a few weeks' time. But it's very risky to pick up a hooker that you're planning on selling in the next week or two, especially if you're getting players like Fiketti and Bird in as well that you're planning on keeping for a couple of weeks and offloading. You got to kind of count your trades at this point to see how many you have left. But I don't mind the Harry Grant shout, getting him at a discount. And I mean, it's similar to what I was saying before. You kind of how good he can be, but he hasn't been that so far this season. So you're just kind of fingers crossed that he gets back into that form.
Yeah, but Tom Starling quite a good buy. And then
Yeah.
for the halfback roulette this week, four options really around the mid-tier price of Jamal, Fogarty, Adam Reynolds, Jerome Hughes, Daly Cherry Evans. Personally, if I was to rank them, I would go Jamal, Daly, Fogarty, Adam Reynolds. Where do you sit with those four, and who would you buy out of them?
Fogarty's definitely at the top of my list. Uh, I think we're talking about it just pre-pod, that now that Metcalf and who was the other one that's got injured? Metcalf and
Sharp.
yeah, Sharp. Now that they're both injured, he is kind of a top five option in the halves now. Fogarty, and at a decent discount. So I think Fogarty's probably the best one. Got a great base, and can go big on his day when he gets plenty of kick meters, a couple try assists and whatnot. After that, probably looking at Hughes. I I've I got buddy Josh in my ear from our pod last week when Hughes went absolutely massive and scored at 80, being like, I can't believe you didn't like him as a buy. But I'm still not huge on Hughes. When Munster, takes control on this team, it means that Hughes kind of suffers. And you look at just last week where he had a try and only managed 45 as well. So he will have those weeks, but he will also have the weeks where he scores 80. So yeah, he's not a bad option, but just not one that is consistent enough, I think. Um, and then after that, DCE. Do you really think DCE is an option when you've got some of these other guys, or is it
Well,
just the price that entices you?
the thing for me is, yeah, 600K is kind of what entices me with Daly. Like, he's never really been that cheap before, and he still looks not as good as he used to do. Don't get me wrong at all, but I think for the Eagles to make the top eight, he's going to have to do everything there. And I think Olakawatu actually affects his scoring because he only gets many cheap try assists there. But I think again, it definitely comes with a bit of risk there over these three players. But I think if you're willing to take a risk, he's one that could definitely go well and go up to 700K instead of go south, as I don't see it really going more south than 600K.
Yeah, he's definitely an interesting pod option. I just think compared to previous seasons where we've seen him do all the in-play kicking, like Brooks has obviously taken a little bit away from him, but we have to see him get try assists just to get a 50 this season compared to previously when he gets an extra try assist or a line break or whatever, he shoots up to a 60, 65 where we'd normally like to have a player like that. But yeah, it's really hard with DCE because we know what he can do. We just haven't seen it so far this year.
Yeah, and then where do you sit Adam Reynolds in between these two or these three?
Yeah, not really. I'm not a huge Adam Reynolds fan at that price. I mean, don't get me wrong, great player. Just I just think Walsh is going to take a lot away from him.
Yeah, I
So
mean I
yeah,
could
probably not
see
one
that,
that
and
I'll be buying to.
it's probably only a matter of time till you don't really want to say this about anyone, but until he gets injured. And
Yeah, he's at that point of his career, right? He's at the back end, he's injury prone.
I
Yeah,
feel
Walsh is taking a lot of work from Reynolds, a lot of in-play kicking, and a lot of those try assists that you normally see Reynolds get, Walsh is getting involved in.
I feel
So
he's a little bit more like he doesn't he doesn't like he doesn't go as big as the other guys can. Like Jamal can go big, and you can see Hughes can go big, and Adam has gone big 2 games this season, but I don't feel it goes like he doesn't do it as much, does he? And then he can go
yeah,
lower than the other two also.
yeah, exactly. I'd definitely, if I had to put a guess on how many big games players would have, Reynolds, I'd maybe think he'd get one more this season, whereas I'd be much more confident that Hughes has bigger scores left in him this season. Whereas I know Fogarty's probably he's gonna just keep smashing out 50s to 60s week in, week out.
Yeah, and then Keon, one that we've been asked a bit about if he is a sell after that 60-minute effort there. Uh, no, I don't think Keon is a sell. I mean, he's done really well for the last couple of weeks. Where do you or for the last month and a half, where do you sit with Keon as a hold for sure at the prop position?
Yeah, definitely hold. Not going to think too much about this one. He's a hold until he starts to show signs that, or starts to be a bit more consistently playing, 50, 60 minutes a week, which I'll still wait. Even if he only plays 60 again this week, I'd probably wait one more week even after that just to make sure that that's the case because I'm not going to trade out a guy that then shoots back up to playing 80 minutes again the week after, and then I've got to waste another trade to get him back in.
Yeah, I think the thing about that 60-minute game was they were getting flogged and they were just like, Keon, you've played huge minutes for us down the middle the last couple of weeks. You can have a stint.
Yeah, got an eye fracture as well, so probably should give
Yeah.
him a bit of a break.
But yeah, he's a definite hold. He's going to be probably the second or the third or fourth best mid there. I think Jaxon Purdue's time has pretty much come to an end. I think you hold him this week just because he's a green tick, but do you agree next week you move him on?
Oh, it depends how big his score is, to be honest. He's definitely a hold this week, like you said. He'll be playing, so that's enough for me. Uh, if he shoots out a 60, I mean, if he shoots out a 60 this week, do you keep him again for one more week?
I
Probably.
don't think you can. Like he's shown it all season that he goes big score and then like he's so inconsistent.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's going to be one to play by ear to see how he scores. If he gets another 30 odd, he'll drop another 20 or so K. So he's definitely going to keep losing cash until he gets another big score. So, um, yeah, one to play by ear, I guess. We'll probably come back to Purdue next week, but I'm leaning towards sell next week.
Yeah, but a clear hold this week if you need him as that green tick
Yeah.
in the center position. Oh, yeah, center position. And then Adam Fonua-Blake with a 53 and a 47 in the last 2 weeks. He just doesn't look as good as he did at the Warriors, not really threatening the line there. But where do you see with Adam? He's not going to be in the top 4 or 5 mids this season. Do you think that if you were owner of Adam with him not playing any of the major buy rounds, you could use him on as a sell this week? Or is he one that you hold and he'll be a good 17th, 18th man for the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, I think he would be a good player to have in your like final 17 for Blake, but there's so much you can do with that 720K right now, and especially if you don't have a starting 13 for this week, he's one that you can definitely be considering to sell. Like you said, he's not going to be the top five. He's not probably not a top five mid this year. There's just so many good options, and like you can't really blame some of the guys that are hanging around there, like Tarpany, Koloamatangi. Even Duncan over the last couple of weeks has been killing it, putting out 50s for fun. So, yeah, he's probably not going to be a mainstay for the rest of the season, but he's one that you would be happy to have in your top 17. But if you need to use that cash to get 13 in this week, I think he is one to consider selling, yes.
I just want you to look at this that he's gone big game, too small, big game, too medium, big game, too medium. So if this is anything next week, you should put a captaincy on him because
Yeah, that's actually not a bad shout. That's happened since round five. 61, then low, 70, then low, 80, then too low. Yeah, that's not a bad shout, to be honest.
so if you're
That
looking
means
at this,
next
I
week he's
think
gonna what's that? Who's he playing next week when he's back?
Dolphins
Dolphins, yeah. Put your house on it. 80 plus.
80 plus. No, but he's one that I would definitely be holding this weekend. Can't really say the same about Toby Couchman. I think him playing on the second row or off the interchange, I'm not as keen on him at all. And I think that shoulder, it's still threatening him, isn't it? He's a clear sell in your eyes, or do you have an argument to hold him?
No, he's definitely a sell. I am not sure where they fell because I was still waiting to determine whether they were going to go into surgery or not. But considering he already had a shoulder issue earlier in the year and he took 4 weeks off, 4 weeks off.
It was free.
Um, yeah, three and a bye, and he was
Yeah,
back after that. Um, so I think he will at least have 4 weeks off again, which means you kind of miss half the rest of the season available. So you definitely sell him. He'll definitely be one to consider next year, hopefully when he's back and starting in the front row because now he's lost a decent amount of cash. So yeah, unfortunate for Couchman. He's been a really good asset to have, especially at the start of this year, but he's definitely a sell and one to yeah cash in on now.
yeah, and then we've already spoken about Damien Cook, but I'm going to get your opinions on Damien and then one on you and Aiken quickly to wrap us up.
Yeah, Cookie, he's a risky player, right? Like if you're hanging around at like, 15, 20K rank and you want to climb some rank, I don't mind jumping on Cookie, but as you can see there's a lot of the top teams that own him. Like in the top 100, half the teams own him and he's under, 7% owned. So it's kind of hard to buy into Cookie and expect to climb rank, I think now. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of Damien Cook at this point. I think there's probably better options that you can go, like a Starling this week. It's really hard. I don't like the hooker position at all this week. I think I'm going to steer clear of Cook.
Yeah, I do think that if he was playing 80 minutes, we'd probably be all over him. But with him only playing the like 55 minutes, he needs those attacking stats like he has had the last couple of weeks to go that big score.
Yeah, I haven't, to be honest, I haven't really had enough time to look at it and break it down, but he's so inconsistent. And the fact that he is so, um, well, he can fill so many different positions, right? Anytime they have an outside back injury, he moves to center immediately, which is annoying if you're buying into a hooker.
Yeah,
So, um, yeah, I think it's too risky going Damien Cook, unfortunately.
yeah. And then where do you sit with you and Aiken this week?
Aitken, I am holding on for dear life. I think if you've got Aitken, he's definitely a hold because he's a green tick. Yes, he's going to play centre. The last game at centre he played for the Rabbits, he got a 40 odd. I think that was probably the higher end of his scoring at centre. Normally he scores around the 30 when he plays centre. But once Latrell comes back, they'll push Johnston back to the wing and Isaiah Tass into the centres, and Aitken will move back to the back row. So I am holding Aitken, I think, because even last game there was Cody Walker's injury, which forced Whiten to move into the halves and him back to the centres. So injuries similar to the Cook, right? Like any injuries force Aitken to the centres. Any injuries in the outside backs or halves force Aitken to the centres, which is unfortunate. But will that happen for the rest of the year? I don't think so. So I don't mind holding Aitken at the
Yeah,
moment, just because he's got so much upside, Aitken. Yeah.
I'd definitely be holding for this week, just considering that he should get his spot back in the second row pretty soon when Wyden's back and then Walker goes to 5'8".
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Walker, I think I don't know the longevity of that hamstring. I think it was a hamstring injury that he had, so I don't know how long he's out for,
Well, he's
but
in the reserves this week.
oh, there you go. So he could be back next week easy. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, thanks for joining us and thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next one.
Cheers.